I saw Crimes of the Future this week, and I was not prepared for this to be my favorite movie of the year. It was. It's not for everybody. If you're squeamish, if you get grossed out easily, if you don't like blood, you don't like surgery. It's gritty. It's gross. But if you can get past that, and one shot that I have particular objections to, which I won't get into here, but everything about this movie was beautifully artistic, clever, and so unusual. If you're looking for something unlike anything you've ever seen before, this is the movie you should go see. I was absolutely blown away. That is to say, I never thought of myself as a horror fan at all until years ago I watched David Cronenberg's movie Existenz, 1999. Can't recommend that highly enough either. And across both of these, and a lot of his work, his prop work is mind-blowing because it's all practical props made to look like everyday objects, but made out of flesh and bone. And you'll have guns that are made out of flesh, and they pulsate, and like they're made out of bones, and you're shooting teeth. And this movie, Crimes of the Future, establishes a whole world and a whole subculture in a post-apocalypse, it seems. They don't get too deep into why the world is the way it is, but there's a pollution problem. There's people who are displaced. The cities are kind of in ruins, and people are depraved in this way we haven't seen before, where they're slicing into each other, and performance art takes on a new meaning, and surgery takes on a new meaning. And it's a whole underground culture that he's invented that serves as kind of a commentary on culture now and where it could be headed. It touches on so many different issues without being super explicit about any of them. I found it sophisticated, compelling, and grotesque, but I could not look away. I love this movie.
Okay, I got a couple of follow-up questions. As
Sure.
somebody who hasn't watched the movie and I'm interested in it, it looks so very different. Now, some of the things that you just mentioned, obviously it's a horror movie, but
Mhm.
is there like a lot of body horror? Is this the kind of movie that's sort of meant to scare you psychologically, or do you see a lot of like the parts that are leaning to the horror elements, are they visually on screen, or is it more just psychological horror, or is it a combination of?
So here's the thing. It's if you're squeamish, it'll be freaky to you. And it's I find with Cronenberg's work, the horror is really the visuals, but I'm never afraid of his movies. I'm always compelled, and I'm always made to think by his movies. And so to call it horror, it's gritty and disturbing in a number of levels, but I really found it kind of beautiful because of the way he's able to work metaphors in and make points. So more than anything, it's a thoughtful movie. It's not a scary one.
Okay. I mentioned the comparison when we were talking about this in our production meeting earlier in the week, that it kind of feels like, at least the marketing gave off the feel that it's kind of like Mother, but and this it's a lot of metaphors, and
Well,
it's an allegory as a film to, in this case, the future of humanity.
I mean, you could put them in the same category, because they both care about the environment. There's elements about the environment. Mother uses sort of a biblical storytelling technique where it's like taking you through biblical stories to make a point about nature. And so that would be our past. This one would focus more on the future, and it's not necessarily a follow-up because it's a lot more about humanity, and human evolution, and the idea that we are integrating ourselves with technology and body modification in a number of areas. This comments on all of that. At the same time, less in a way where it's saying an environmental message of like, because Mother was, look what you've done to Mother Earth. This one seems to be more, look what we're doing to ourselves.
Okay.
So it's a lot more about the culture.
Okay. I mean, that, if not for anything else, it at least piques my interest because, like you belayed some of my fears, because I was really getting the feeling that this is like a horror movie, and it's not like I'm scared of watching horror movies. I just don't enjoy horror movies because it doesn't really connect with me. I'm like, I don't get the same enjoyment out of it.
Yeah. See, I don't like horror generally. I really love David Cronenberg because what I think, he's less of a horror creator and he's more of a surrealist, and I love surrealism. So this, and I think that's where you can draw a parallel to Mother as well. Aronofsky is also a very surreal director, and part of surrealism is evoking a visceral reaction from things that don't exactly make sense literally, but metaphorically it drives the point home, and it's like somebody dreaming in front of you so that you can try to interpret it. And everything carried over consistently. There's no plot holes and or ideology holes within this this culture and this world he's created. It's visually repulsive but also breathtaking, and such an original idea. It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, the movies, it's got some mixed reactions, but I get the sense it's more because it's not, and that's from the general audience, because I don't think
What
this
are
is a
people
movie
saying
that's for
about it?
everyone. But obviously you loved it. I think you upped my anticipation for it. I have to find a way and time to watch it. I have to see first if it's playing in a theater near me, which it probably is. And if not, then I'll have to wait for it to come out on digital or Blu-ray. But speaking of thoughts in the movie, I believe Roland also went to see the film, and he's gonna let us know what he thinks about it. And I'd love to see what he has to say, especially given that he's a big horror fan of the genre as in general. But this seems like, if not for anything else, it's like a thinking man's horror movie. And
I think the best horror
Yeah.
movies are ones that make you think.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what Roland has to say.
Yes, let's find out.
All right, this thing is shining in my face, but let's do it. Just watched Crimes of the Future, and it's definitely a Cronenberg movie, for sure. Definitely another one of those altruistic filmmakers. He just has these repeating things that you see. Of course, using body horror. That's a major aspect of who Cronenberg is, and using surrealism in his storytelling and his social commentary, which is not really the first thing you think of when it comes to Cronenberg, but it's a big part of who he was, or who he is. He's not dead yet, I'm sorry. But it's interesting to see how, he talks about where we are now, so it's interesting to see what he thinks we will be and where we're going down the line, very desensitized and this psychosexual world. It was interesting, to say the least. My one thing was, it was very interesting to see him use CGI. He's always been a practical effects, so I guess it just goes to show that we are at a point in CGI where even somebody like Cronenberg is cool with using it. But it's very interesting. If you like surrealism and you like social commentaries and you like getting grossed out, I definitely recommend this movie. This movie is definitely not for everybody. I think this will be a very polarizing film, but I don't know. It was cool. I liked it.